Hello, everybody. David Parsons here. This is the Nostalgia Trap podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've got a great show for you today. I had a great time talking to my guest. Her name is Katie Halper. I know many of you probably have heard the Katie Halper Show. It's on WBAI, which is the New York affiliate of Pacifica Radio. And as a Californian, I certainly have fond memories of Pacifica Radio. I think that's where I might have first heard Terrence McKenna, actually, and heard of a lot of that other weird shit. So that's a good legacy. And Katie Halper Show is really funny. For those that haven't heard it, go to katiehalper.com. You can find how to download the show, how to subscribe to the show. It's a left take on politics, but it's funny. And Katie's really funny. I think that comes through in this interview. You know, we talked a lot about the typical Nostalgia Trap stuff. I wanted to talk to her about her family and where she comes from and where she was raised and how she became the kind of political person that she is, but also how humor intersects with that and how important that element is to the whole thing we're doing here. So I had a really fun time with Katie, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. You can find more of these conversations at nostalgiatrap.com. And if you have kindness in your heart and money in your pocket, go to patreon.com/nostalgiatrap, and you can subscribe to the show for $5 a month. You get bonus content. We're putting together a whole bunch of stuff. But if you do subscribe to the show, and thank you for those that have already done that, it really means a lot. It's been awesome to see people subscribing. Give me your physical address, though. You can just send me a message on Patreon and send me your physical address so I can send you stickers and buttons and other fun stuff, because I loved getting stuff like that in the mail when I was a kid, and I want to try to recreate that a little bit for those people that are supporting the show. So the first round of political propaganda merchandise will be going out soon. So subscribe if you want, and if you already have subscribed, get me your address so I can put you on the mailing list. Okay, cool. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. This is me talking with the one and only Katie Halper. Katie Halper, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wanted to talk to you for a long time. You're one of these voices of the left that I've seen, in my feed more and more in past years, and especially in the last election cycle. Katie Halper Show was everywhere, and you produce a lot of content, and you do a lot of commentary on. I don't know, all the stuff that's going on from a perspective that you don't generally see. I mean, how did this start for you in terms of politics? I mean, we can go back.
Sure.
Where are you from originally?
So I'm from the Upper West Side. I'm half Bronxian, half Queensian.
Oh, the Upper West Side of Manhattan,
Manhattan,
New York
City.
Sorry,
yeah. You see, that shows you just how New York-centric I am.
It's like, I'm from the West Side. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Where?
Compton.
Okay,
no,
cool.
Just kidding. West Side of New York City. My mom is Bronxian. My dad is Queensian. My grandmother actually grew up in the Coops, which was this kind of cooperative housing, kind of communist thing.
Where was that?
The Bronx.
Okay.
And
you know what? I think is that Co-op City?
No,
or is that something
probably,
different?
Should I grab my phone? I can look it up.
If you want to,
as
yeah,
a reference,
go for it.
Because I'll probably be talking about a lot of history that I should.
Please. One of my students did a project on Co-op City
really?
last semester, and I was kind of blown away by its existence and the fact that I knew nothing about it.
Right. Well.
But the Coops is something different, apparently.
Yeah, the Coops, they actually made a documentary about it called At Home in Utopia, or A Home in Utopia. Let me look it up. But my grandmother grew up there. My dad always calls me, at least my volume's off, but my dad always calls me at the most inopportune times.
At the recording moment?
Yeah, exactly. Coops, let's see, I'll put in Karl Marx Apartments. Because apparently it was based on that, which was some housing cooperative in Vienna.
Wow.
Let's see, the Bronx. Oh, I can just look at Utopia. The Coops. Okay, here it is. I found a New York Times article on the documentary I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, 80 years ago, the United Workers Cooperative Colony in the Bronx was more than just a housing complex for an enclave of secular Jews, many of them communists, socialists, anarchists, and their sympathizers. The Coops, as this community of 2 square blocks is commonly called, once housed their own restaurant, gym, youth clubs, grocery store, and daycare center. Built next to the spacious Bronx Park, the Coops still have lush gardens in their courtyards and the hammer and sickle adorning the doors.
Really? Still to this day?
Yeah, the people of this insular community of about 2,000 served as pioneers for future co-op housing projects in New York that proliferated after World War II, such as Co-op City and Penn South. Although the coups brought together American radicals, they did not last long. The complex has been privately owned for decades.
It's funny, like interviewing people that I guess you could call the people that I've interviewed mostly on this show as like the New York left. I find out so much about the like commie Jews that used to have a lot more to say in this country. It doesn't sound like there are 2,000 commie Jews up in the coups right now. Anymore.
No, I don't know where they are. They're in the closet. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, they. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I wonder how many of them had the commie kids? How many of them changed their politics? I mean, so there's the coups, which is where my grandmother was born and raised, and her mother, my great grandmother, was in the ILGW, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. Yeah. And then she was a dancer, my grandmother, like a modern dancer, this is back in the day when there was a real connection between modern dance and politics.
Can you explain that?
I don't know it, but I know that like Martha Graham and those people were really, really woke, they were really radical politically. And
woke modern dancing.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. That's a good WMD. Look at that.
Wow.
We found them here.
Yeah, that's a brand.
Right? So my grandmother also went to Camp Kinderland, which is where I went and worked at, and my mother and uncle worked there. My grandmother got a scholarship, I think, from the ILGW.
And Camp Kinderland is a communist indoctrination camp for children?
I actually made a documentary about it called Commie Camp. I mentioned on the last episode of my show because when I'm trying to teach the Trump administration about how you can acknowledge all the victims of the Holocaust, and the way you do that is not by omitting Jews, but you mention other people. Right. And we commemorate at Kinderland. They have Holocaust Commemoration Day. We also have Hiroshima Day. But during Holocaust commemoration, we mention Jews, non-Jews, gypsies, trade unionists, communists, the gays.
The other victims of the Nazis.
Yeah. Right. Which is I love this idea that like the Trump administration just wanted to give voice to the voiceless victims of the Holocaust.
It's really weird. Like I honestly don't know how to read it. Like it's obviously an intentional act. It's obviously some kind of troll. I feel like Bannon is behind it, but
Richard Spencer, that guy, the Nazi,
guy that got punched,
the human punching bag.
Yes.
Who, by the way, sounds so much like Christopher Guest's characters. I have to do a mashup of it. I mean, especially from Waiting for Guffman. But he was happy about the de-Judification, I think, as he called it, of the statement. That's what they were going for.
It's a weird take on history, though, for white supremacists, because it's not really Holocaust denial.
They call it Holocaust denial. A form of it. I mean, I would like to think of it now as, I didn't think of it this way before, but maybe it's like Holocaust denial light. Yeah. Or it's kind of de-radicalized Holocaust denial, because this version
it's woke Holocaust denial.
Well, it's woke. It's like fake woke intersectional, not like beyond identity politics Holocaust revision. But what it really is a way to de-emphasize the Jewish specificity of the Holocaust purpose. So if you just make it about, look, a lot of people were killed, Slavs, Russians, and of course this is all true. Now, it's different when you're killed in a war versus killed in concentration camps, right? But, I don't remember the numbers, but, millions of other people were killed in terms of, and this is weird, I think of writing a piece about this, but it's weird as someone who's a commie Jew, secular commie Jew, it's weird for me to be saying, the Jews, they killed more Jews than other people, because I'm always the one who's like, right. Not just Jews, right? Let's talk about all the victims.
Your politics is basically could be summed up by saying wipe Israel off the map, right? That's basically where you're at.
I definitely have lots of friends who think that. I'm Chomskyan in so many things.
Wait, is he the two-state solution guy?
He's two-state or one-state.
Yeah.
He's whichever, and I am too. Now, of course, the people making the two-state less and less viable every day are the Zionists, the hawkish Zionists. I'm not, and some people I know think it's reprehensible, but I'm not. However, it gets done. Yeah. Get it done. Yeah.
So you've got a Larry the Cable Guy attitude towards the Israel situation.
Yeah, you're not the first person who said that. But no, I mean, I'm definitely it's so clearly critical of Netanyahu. I mean, I think he's absolutely awful. And what's funny is no one talks about this, but Donald Trump said, and I looked this up to make sure I was right, he said during an interview that he wasn't sure if the two-state solution was possible, because he wasn't sure that both parties were ready for peace. And he said one side more than the other. And then he made it clear he was talking about Israel without saying Israel.
Yeah.
But it was obvious. And I actually asked Shmuley Rabbi Shmuley, that right-wing crazy guy who writes about, like, gives sex tips also and kosher. Did he write kosher sex?
Ew.
I know. Trigger warning. A little late. I asked him about that when I ran into it at the DNC, and I was trying to... My issue was like, forget that I think that the Israeli government is absolutely atrocious and that his take on Israel is atrocious. But I was kind of like, do you not remember when Trump said that? I just wanted to hear his response to it, but he kind of ignored it. He just said what a great guy he was. And he was like, yeah, Trump needs to denounce, white supremacists, just like people on the left need to renounce and denounce someone like Max Blumenthal.
Right.
Which
oh
I
my
thought
God.
So, yeah. Like,
wow.
I think of Max Blumenthal
yeah.
white supremacy
Same thing.
of the left. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. How much was the Israel thing a part of discourse at all at what is it, Kinderland?
Kinderland.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
'Cause I guess I wanted to know, like, how much among, like, left Jews is the Israel thing, like, a big separation from other Jews, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. So I'm thinking of re-releasing my documentary as Resistance Camp, maybe.
Cool. Yeah.
Just to give it some more relevance. Although it's pretty timelessly relevant, just about kids being political and how it's not actually an inappropriate thing. Like, you don't talk to kids about politics the way you do with adults. But if we think of politics as just a concern with others, so just an issue of compassion and justice, there's nothing inappropriate about that for kids.
Right. Like, they should know about these things and they're not stupid.
Yeah, and like, it's just like we teach sharing. I mean, sharing is basically
yeah.
I think Obama actually made a funny joke once, I think, on the Daily Show about how, he shared his crayons in pre-K. It's dangerously socialist or something. But the Israel thing is interesting. There's this phenomenon called PEP, which I also mentioned last episode.
Yes, yeah.
Progressive Accept on Palestine. That does divide some people. But in my circle, my family, it's not... I guess the range is from, like... No, it's pretty... I think it's funny. My uncle who died, and can I say we're in his house? Or is that too much of it?
No, that's great.
So we're doing this in my uncle and aunt's house on the Upper West Side, where my cousins grew up. And he was very... I remember being surprised by something he said that was more kind of... I agreed with him, but it was almost more sympathetic to Israeli Jews than I'm used to hearing, and more critical of anti-Semitism. But he'd be the first person to call Netanyahu a fascist, and I'm sure he believed in the two-state solution. One of the things I want to do is gather a bunch of people who we talked about politics and record their memories of the discussions with him. We're lucky because he won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the People's World, which is the Daily Work. There used to be the Daily Worker,
right?
The communist,
right? Yeah.
So there used to be the Daily Worker on the East Coast and the People's World. Is that what it's called? The People's World on the West Coast, and then they merged. So it's just the People's World. So now
they're just called TMZ. Yes,
exactly. The Marxist...
the Marxist Zionist and anti...
the Marxist zoo... God, there's so few words.
We'll work on that.
Zapateros, shoemakers. Make it like, so, yeah, it's funny because he won one of those awards, and so we have video of him talking about it, which is nice, and we also have video of him delivering a speech at one of their events about People's World, I guess is what it is. Gave a speech at the Better World Awards.
Okay.
So, People's World Better World Awards. It's CPUSA.
Yeah.
But he gave a speech there, and he also gave a speech for them. It's called "We're Not Going Back: 2015 Celebration of African American Struggle." It talks about like racism, and he was a cabinet maker, but he did construction and carpentry before that, so he is a real, he was always doing organizing. And so yeah, this was in 2015, and this is a nice indication of what kind of world I grew up in. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award. The other people who got awards were Amini Baraka, who's Amiri Baraka's widow.
Yeah,
and Ava Farkas, who is someone I grew up with, went to Camp Kinderland with. And then we also did Russian-Ukrainian folk dance together, which is kind of the third. There's kind of a couple of, like, markers. Like, you had family who fought in the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah.
Kinderland in your family. And then later on, this Russian-Ukrainian folk dance group that used to be at the bar that KGB is in now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
In the East Village?
Yeah, on 4th Street.
What?
It used to be real, like, it was old Ukrainian communists.
Is that your, like, ethnic background?
I'm a secular, I guess I'm Belarusian, but, Jews are Jews. This sounds weird, too, but, like, I realize the older I get, when people are like, being Jewish is just religion, I'm like, nope. Tay-Sachs, my friend. Like, if I breed with another Ashkenazi Jew, we'll have to get tested to see if we carry the Tay-Sachs gene.
Yeah.
Because then I'll have to have amni or whatever.
It's like the Jewish sickle cell, right?
Yes. Although, what's interesting, so sickle cell, I don't know if you know about this, but it has a...
Probably not. That's
a genetic
that's the limits of my biological knowledge.
That exists, right?
Yeah.
But it has a genetic advantage because the same thing that gives you sickle cell gives you... a resistance to malaria. So that's why sickle cell is so high in African American or African whatever. I assume, I don't know, African British, African French, basically African descendant people.
Right.
Because it offered this genetic advantage. So, right, it was like naturally selected to keep that gene.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but Tay-Sachs is just inbreeding. I'm pretty sure no one delivers when they know that they have a baby with Tay-Sachs because it's a painful death in a matter of Yeah. Anyway, is right. But yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really identify as being Jewish when I was younger because I thought it was religious. And then the older I got, I just realized I was pretty
So
Jewish.
this Kinderland thing wasn't like explicitly Jewish, or?
I mean, we had the Yiddish word of the day, as Mitchell Silva used to call it, like that.
Word of the day,
and the Yiddish word of the day is maven. But it was always Jewish in this very. First of all, since the beginning of its founding, it was open to non-Jews, and it was much kind of like the Coops. I think the non-Jews there were black. I think that was the case early on in Kinderland too.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that back when the bluish connection, black and Jewish.
That's right.
But
Okay, so
sorry, I diverged like 1,000 times.
No, I guess I wanted
we
to.
have relatives in Israel.
Oh, you do?
My mom and uncle have cousins in Israel. A cousin named Rivka. And she had a Palestinian boyfriend, and that was...
Oh, my God, that's like a fucking indie movie.
I know. Well, wait till this. It's like, that was COCK blocked by the wall that was put up.
Literally?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's going to happen in America with our wall,
A lot of Mexican...
A lot of inner...
Oh, my God. What was that? Sorry about that. Jeez Louise.
A lot of interracial, inter-border relationships destroyed. But, like, a lot of possibilities for really good music and movies. Isn't that weird that people have said that?
All my ISIS boyfriends are going to be...
All my ISIS boyfriends.
Yeah. That's going to be the title of my memoirs.
All my ISIS boyfriends? Yeah. I'm ready for that. People have that weird thing I don't know if you heard this, like, weird excitement about, like, the punk community is really excited that we're going to have, like, punk rock's going to be so awesome under Trump. Like, where it's going to... Have you seen tweets like that?
No, because there's going to be, like, a revival of
it? It's just like, well... Trump, it's going to be awful and we're going to all die, but there'll be some really, like, there'd be like a
great
renaissance.
Soundtrack to accompany us on the way
like
out.
a renaissance of music and movies. Like Radiohead will put out like a really great album that just sticks it to Trump and like that kind of shit. I mean, I remember the Bush years, I was more excited about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, dude, did you know that like Annie DeFranco has a spoken word album coming out?
Funny.
Do you remember?
That true?
No. Well, during the Bush years, it was. She has this like, I think it's about 10. I think the track might be 9 minutes and 11 seconds long.
Oh.
But if you haven't heard that, dude.
What was it?
What
was it called? I mean, she did those "Tis of Thee" and all that. Up, 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 up. That album was before 9/11, right? I remember.
Yeah. No, this one is like she's calling it an inside job, like before anyone else was even doing that.
Maybe
I mean,
she was involved in it then. Just
yeah, that's what that means.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. How do I need to figure out how to shut off my...
The Twin Towers fell either because of Bush and the cabal of Illuminati or Annie DeFranco involved in some way. The Jews are always there.
Idea because it's like, you can't just be I'm offering... Guys, anti-Semites out there, please... I'm offering.
There are so many that listen to this show.
I know, on my show too. So no, I will help you streamline and organize your anti-Semitic narratives, because you can't say that like Jews run Wall Street and plan 9/11 unless you show that all the Jews who worked at the World Trade Center happened to be gone on a retreat.
Didn't they? I read, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think I read this in High Times magazine that, which is known for its
veracity,
really fierce journalism, but that all the Jews that were in the World Trade Center got a phone call from like a head Jew, like
in Yiddish or Hebrew.
I'm not sure, but like basically like a half an hour before the first plane hit, that was just like, hey.
So they all an exodus. It was a modern day exodus.
Get out of the building.
And that person was their Moses.
Yeah, exactly. That narrative. I mean,
it's so embarrassing.
I think probably every single American has a different narrative of 9/11 in their head.
Right.
Actually, there's no like one consensus anymore. Snowflake.
Yeah.
Okay, so. You as a child.
Oh, as a child, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you grew up, I would imagine, we're close to the same age. I'm 22, so.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was really flattered.
No, I feel like, do you remember Reagan? Do you remember the Reagan years at all? Or do you what were the years that you really, if we're thinking about presidential administration?
I guess Reagan I was born in 81, so.
Okay, yeah.
I remember George Bush. I started out very political, so I remember once.
Well, you didn't have a choice, it seems like.
No, I didn't. To be a rebel, I would have had to have been conservative or apolitical. But I remember doing a report in school in 3rd grade on Rodney King. And how it was not just an isolated incident. And I remember...
That's so cute. What year is that? So I think that's like 19... Well, the riots were in 92, so you're young, dude. Yeah, you're like 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, 3rd grade. How old? Yeah. And then I also remember seeing Pretty Woman, which... Oh, no, actually, earlier I was a big cultural critic. I would watch... I hated cartoons. They were like so unrealistic. I was like, you're asking me to believe this stuff. It's absurd. What am I, a little kid? So I'd watch black and white movies and musicals.
A bunch of little blue creatures live in mushrooms?
Yeah,
come on,
I know,
please.
Come on. I'm not an idiot. And so I'd watch musicals and black and white movies. I loved Little Women. I loved Oklahoma. I loved Shirley Temple. Kiss Me Kate. And Grease, actually, too. And I remember I used to say that a movie was, like, prejudiced against women. And my babysitter was like, yeah, it is sexist. And I think that was about Kiss Me Kate. And in Grease, I remember I said that, Sandy, played by Olivia Newton-John, how come she changed for Danny Zuko, played by John Travolta? And I was very uncomfortable with the scene in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers where they basically kidnap the women in a fun Technicolor musical kind of way. And the song they sing is like, and the women were sobbing, fit to be tied. And it's about a story. What is it? Some Roman. What was it about? But it's a musical rendition of this story about something in ancient Rome.
You know what? It's like you had a critical eye.
Yes.
And
Pretty Woman when I saw.
Pretty Woman.
I said it was feminist. I thought it was feminist, not radical. I said not.
Well, you'd already
feminist,
a year older.
Feminist.
You had the language for it at that point.
I was like 11.
What's listening to you? It's kind of like I feel so dumb in part because I'm like I had to be taught. Like it's partly because I'm like a privileged white dude, but I had to be taught to like see that shit in movies. Like I had to like take a film class at 18 years old at UCSB. That was like a film theory class that showed me why Die Hard was like a fucked up gender story. And I was like, oh.
Right. But you should get credit for that. Like I was taught it early. I was brought up in a. You know what I mean? But
you're also from it reminds me of Celluloid Closet, which is like all these like because you're in a group that is like
persecuted.
That's like yeah.
Which lots of people don't feel comfortable saying. But guess what? We're not anymore in large. I mean, there's no systemic anti-Semitism. And there hasn't been for a while, but like, you know, my mom got rocks thrown at her by the Irish Catholic school.
I was thinking more about the woman thing than the Jew thing.
Oh, the woman
because
thing.
like
Yeah,
you know,
that
you
too,
watch a
right.
movie when you're young and you're
Yeah,
and,
but
and
I
you're
don't
like
think
kind of
most
like
people. I mean, I don't think most kids my age certainly, right, were aware of that. Not to
And
that
that-
came from the political consciousness and
true.
discussions.
And that word prejudice, like you're
Right.
already like kind of
Right,
conditioned
right.
to know that prejudice
Sure.
was a bad thing.
Right.
And that word was big in the 80s. I remember my
Yeah.
parents being like, you shouldn't be prejudiced.
Right.
Like not prejudiced, just prejudice.
Prejudice, yeah.
Like
you
you're
should
prejudiced.
not be a noun, yeah. An abstract noun. Yeah, that was really because of my family being so political. You know, I went to a peace rally, anti-nukes march. My first march was when I was 1.
So many people on this show talk about their parents taking them to anti-nuclear marches.
I went to
and you don't even see those anymore.
Yeah, no, you don't. I went to a pro-choice rally. It was a NARAL rally, I remember. I did the AIDS walk. I did the AIDS dance. I remember I was...
AIDS dance?
AIDS dance. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, I
Do
know.
the
You're
AIDS
like, I
dance.
did the AIDS
you
dance.
You can dance if you want
It was like a short-lived craze in the late
no.
80s, like with the Bartman.
What's that? What's the Bartman?
You know, the Bart Simpson
Oh,
dance.
yeah. No, I did. There was an AIDS dance-a-thon. I think Madonna was there or
Makes sense.
videoed in or something. Yeah.
Did they dance
'cause
on the quilt or under the quilt?
No quilt involved. That would have been a good limbo. They could have done limbo under a quilt.
That's some fucking AIDS synergy right there.
Yeah. But no, this was just an AIDS dance-a-thon and AIDS walk. The AIDS walk was repeated a lot. I'm not sure how many times they did the dance-a-thon. But it makes a lot. That's a great way. We should do dance-a-thons for everything.
There should be some sense of joy or fun in whatever is done because.
So and then
I mean, the other side is winning with fucking monster truck rallies and shit. So
Right,
you know what I
true.
mean?
Right,
like
totally,
why are we? It's weird because like the Clinton campaign tried to like bring in Katy Perry and Beyonce to kind of like try to do that a little bit, like make it all fun, but it just didn't. It seems so like I don't know, stage managed.
Yeah.
There's like a giant fucking Bank of America sign behind Beyonce and shit. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so this is like you as a young lady in New York. What, you're like adolescent, starting to go to high school. You're starting.
No, this was young.
This is younger.
I mean, when I was 7, I remember we ran into these friends, and I said to my mom, "They think the Rosenbergs are innocent, right?" That was like my litmus test to make sure that they were good people. So,
dude, the Rosenbergs are so not innocent. Come on.
Well, she is.
Yeah, she is.
They're
sure.
both innocent of the things that they were charged with.
Yeah.
Charged of. And they use her as leverage to try to get to him. And the brother, David Greenglass, was a disgusting person. He admitted that he made the stuff up about his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, but to protect his wife. And he goes, because I love my sister, but I don't go to bed with my sister. Thanks for telling us. It's weird.
TMI.
TMI and project. I mean, why? It's like the lady doth protest too much. Or
yes, all those things.
No disrespect on Ethel. I'm sure she was fine, but I mean, he had some weird tendencies maybe that were not expressed. I'm not saying anything like that.
I mean, the death of the Rosenbergs is like an act of virulent anti-Semitism.
And
anti-communism. Yeah, and you see this. I mean, if it's in the movie Atomic Cafe, they show like the protests outside, outside the prison where they're being executed, and it's just. Like
they waited till sun went down. It's
a Jew roast for the people that are there. I mean, they're
My mom actually wrote she's a novelist, and one of her books is called The War at Home. It's about her dad coming back from World War II because her brother, my uncle, was born before he left for war, and then my mom afterwards. So she's a literal baby boomer.
Yeah,
and one of the chapters in the book takes place when they find out that the Rosenbergs got to stay, which they did at one point, and they're so happy. It's a really nice scene, but and it was based on there's fictionalized memoirs is what she called the book, but that was, I mean, everyone was against it, and of course Rachel Mirapol, who's the daughter, who adopted Robbie and the Rosenberg's 2 sons, Robert and Michael.
Yes.
They were adopted by this guy, Abe Mirapol, who was a school teacher, and he wrote the lyrics and the song. I never knew the music. I didn't know about that. I knew the lyrics to Strange Fruit.
Holy shit. Are you serious?
Anthem. Yeah, that, of course, Billie Holiday,
made famous
and immortalized. So... They're 2 kids.
And I've always thought of the Rosenbergs' death as a form of lynching.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, not only a form of lynching, but like in line with, actually in line with the lynching of black people, also in line with witch trials in the early part of this country.
Well, that's why Arthur Miller wrote the Crucible during, right? So
I thought he wrote that so that he could have sex with Marilyn Monroe, but I could be wrong.
Or both, yeah.
Yeah, kill two birds, right?
You know who was in the Crucible in college, or was it at law school? Ted Cruz.
Are you kidding me?
As one of the bad guys.
The Crucible.
Oh, you're
right?
Yeah. The Crucible.
Sorry.
That's amazing. No, that's great. So this is like we're in my uncle's apartment, and
I'm looking around, and there's like all sorts of evidence of commie shit in here, including a bunch of like Russian doll shit over here.
So
I love that stuff.
So this is behind me, which listeners can't see obviously, but is a Lawrence 1912 Bread and Roses strike, but it's also done by Ralph Fasanella, who is this famous artist, and my grandfather's best friend growing up, and my mom's as much as a secular Jew can have a godfather, kind of her godfather.
Do you know what city that's supposed to be?
Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
he's done a lot. Did he do that? No, he couldn't have done that one, did he? He's pretty. They've done a lot of exhibits about him. He's pretty famous. I don't remember. It's like primitive is called or something. I don't remember the art term for it. The Russian. So my aunt. It's funny. So my uncle Ricky Eisenberg was his name, and his wife is Sarah Doolittle. Contrary to popular belief, not a Jewish name, but my family never cared about that. Like it's marrying. If I had married a religious Jew, they'd sit Shiva, it's made a lot. It's kind of our Jewishness to like marry non-Jews in a way. So, I mean, not to go out of our way to do that, but it kind of, my mom dated Mary
Don't go out of
Barry
your way,
briefly.
but if it happens, it happens, yeah.
My mom went on some dates with Marion Barry.
Really? He's not Jewish.
No, he's not. But that's my point.
It's a bluish thing.
It's a bluish connection, yeah. So, my aunt it's funny, my aunt and her sister, Carla, Sarah and Carla Doolittle, they grew up upstate in Sharon Springs, but they would work at the Nevele, which is this Jewish resort, kind of like
the Catskills or something.
Yeah. It's in near Ellenville, so I don't know what it technically is, but that's where Carla met her husband Sandy, and then my aunt met my uncle, I think at a Du Bois Club meeting, but these two blonde hair, blue eyed country girls from upstate married two Jewish guys from New York City, which is funny. But the Doolittle's mother, so Sarah and Carla, Sarah's my aunt through my uncle's wife. Her mother was Ukrainian. And so they were always into this stuff, Ukrainian, so that we have some Matryoshki dolls around here. But they also were in this, that Russian-Ukrainian folk dance troupe I was telling you about. 1 second. Let me grab another picture.
Please. When I was in Prague, I saw so many of those Russian doll things. Tourists go nuts for them, but they're like real figures. Like they had like George Bush, Saddam Hussein, Vladimir Putin. Right. I'm sure there's Trump ones. I don't know what's inside them.
You don't?
Well, I know there. Obviously, I know there's more dolls. Right, yeah. But what do you put inside like the Ronald Reagan doll? You know what I mean?
Probably more dolls also.
Smaller Reagan dolls?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Shit.
Or different characters.
That's horrifying. So like inside Ronald Reagan's body would be just smaller Reagans?
Yeah. That's scary. I was just going to show you this.
The Better World Award honoree.
Yeah. So did I talk about this yet? I did, right?
Yeah.
On this thing?
Yeah, that he won an award.
Yeah. When does this interview go up, by the way?
Not too long from now.
Because tomorrow,
I'm
having my live show. I do a monthly live taping, and what's funny is that this is before my uncle died. He'd been sick for 2 years, but I booked Nalini Stamp, who's national membership director of Working Families Party, but she won the same award. Awards a year. It wasn't a lifetime achievement award, but yes, she won an award from the A Better World Award from the New York Friends of the People's World. The People's World, again, being the communist newspaper. So this is the thing that they gave my uncle, and I was there. It was really nice. And it's really nice because he got this after he was sick. He had a really rare, I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say this. If not, I'll tell you, and you can just snip it out.
Yeah,
but
sure.
He had a really rare clotting disorder, and he had a heart attack like 13 years ago or something. He had stents put in, and then it was like really hard for them to even find a surgeon who was willing to operate on him because it was so high risk.
Yeah.
Then they finally found one. He went in for surgery. My mom was there, and he's on the gurney as they wheeled him into the OR. He sang the Internationale.
Oh, wow. Dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and then he had, so that was, that surgery, that heart, the bypass thing was 2010. He came out singing, you know, fight, punching, whatever. And then he had these weird issues with like wounds and stuff. And he wound up getting, over the course of a couple of operations, he had half of one foot amputated and half of the other leg amputated.
Wow.
And so he lived like the last 2 years of his life that way. But honestly, it was I mean, he had 9 lives. I said that the other day, and my cousin's daughter, who's 9, was like, no, 10. He had 10 lives. But he got this award after, this was in 2015, this November of 2015, and he got this award. I remember him, he was there in his wheelchair. He didn't care, he had his half of leg, half of foot, was really happy to get the award, gave a nice speech, sang some music. He was also in the New York City Labor Chorus.
Wow.
So it's nice because he gave a speech. We have them both on video. He gave a speech before, like a couple months before his surgeries, and then like less than a year after the surgeries, he got this award. And they're both on video. But, yeah, it's nice. It says, it's a 2015 Lifetime Achievement Better World Award honoree, Ricky Eisenberg. We salute you for your contributions to the struggle for a better, more just, and peaceful world. And on top it has a quote from Paul Robeson that says, we ask for nothing that is not right, and herein lies the great power of our demand.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the roots run deep in your family, it seems like.
Yeah. I didn't even know this. I have this I forgot I'd taken a video about this just on my phone, but I had one great uncle was a partisan and was killed, and there's a monument to him. Another great uncle was on a picket line, and either cops or thugs, I'll find out, hit him in the head, and he with that crowbar or a baton, but he died a couple years later.
Wow.
And then my Aunt Sarah, this is the tie that binds, right? Because it doesn't matter that she's not Jewish, but it's like her father was in the Spanish Civil War, so that's one of the connections.
Well, the Spanish Civil War is kind of a touchstone for lefties, right?
Yeah,
I mean that's the whole. I mean, it's the thing we're seeing right now is this kind of like the left kind of rediscovering its historic role as the fighters of fascists.
Right,
because
exactly.
anyway, you know what it makes me realize is why that is because liberals don't fight fascists, they join them.
Yeah.
Like that, and that's what we're watching right now.
Right.
And it's fucking gross.
Right.
Like watching the Democrats vote for all of Trump's nominees.
Disgusting, yeah.
And the left is like, oh, we have to fight these people. Not because we want to, but because there's literally nothing standing between
both,
it.
Right?
Yeah.
Both, because we want it. Yeah. But this is me and my friend Colette Stern Asher.
Nice.
Colette's actually grandfather and his wife were one of the people who I ran into on the street with my mom, and said they think the Rosenbergs are innocent, right? So she and I did this Russian-Ukrainian folk dance troupe together, and
Nice.
This is me and my little Vanook, which is what the hair garlands are called. My cousins were in it, and then there was a chorus. So my aunt and uncle sang in the chorus. There was a Matrushki. This is why I brought it up. There's a Matrushki dance. I think it's called Matrushki. Well, who knows what it's really called, but we did Russian folk dance and Ukrainian, and so I guess Matrushka is that? I don't know which one this is, but it was the kind of not the elders, but our mom's generation, and this was like back 20 years ago, I guess. So my aunt, her sister Carla, who I mentioned, and my mom, and then my cousin too. Anyway, they were in this Matrushki dance, which was really cool. These women would wear red dresses that were just like A-line from the top. with hoop skirts at the bottom.
Yeah, sure.
And they would move around.
I think I've seen them.
And the whole point is that you didn't see, it looked like they were gliding around.
Yeah.
So my mom was in that. I just remember that. Yeah. So matryoshkis all around.
From matryoshkis to matryoshkalation.
Yeah.
I want to talk about college.
Oh yeah. So
that was awful segue, but
no, it's good.
I guess I wanted to know, like, kind of like, well, when you're thinking about going to college, you think is like the whole social justice politics thing a part of like what you're thinking, or at this point you're just like, I'm going to go get like an English degree and see what happens, like, because when you're young, it's hard to like conceive of what you're doing. But were politics a part of what you were trying to do when you went to college, or you're thinking about like your future life,
right?
Your career, that kind of shit?
So I went to this. It's funny. I went to this school called Heschel when I was a little kid, up until second grade, and it was weird because it was religious, and like no one. We had to go around the room and say our Hebrew names,
right?
And I was like, "What? I don't know what my Hebrew name is." So everyone's like, "My name is." Jonathan, my Hebrew name is Yonatan, my name is Rebecca, my Hebrew name is Rivka, and it got to me, and actually this light bulb went off in my head, and I was remembering like this name that my uncle called me, and I was like, my name is Katie, and my Hebrew name is Kachkala, which is actually Yiddish for little duck, and was just an affectionate name.
Wow.
So I went there, then I went to this really fancy school called Dalton, a private school on the Upper East Side, and went to like 1,000 bar mitzvahs a day. I didn't go to Hebrew school, and I wasn't bat mitzvahed or anything. My Jewishness was like the Kinderland thing, which was secular anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, and then I went to Wesleyan.
Ooh, Wesleyan.
Early, yeah.
Let's hear about Wesleyan.
It's funny. Wesleyan is like...
This is the 90s or late 90s or early 2000s?
I graduated high school in 99, so I went in 99. I graduated college in 03.
So you were at Wesleyan during 9/11.
I was, which is why I don't really feel... my mom was here. My dad was in Oregon for whatever reason. I just learned my uncle had been working there a couple days earlier, and so they called.
He got the
him.
phone call that.
Oh my God, to not go.
Yeah.
No, this was afterward, and his name's Eisenberg, so they knew he'd be on the
of course.
list. But no,
he's on the list
aunt
for
just
sure.
told me this, that they called her or him because he had been checked in. From a couple days before, and maybe forgot to check out or whatever.
Wow.
So they had to make sure he wasn't, making sure he wasn't missing, and that they had to look for him or something. But I was at school on 9/11, and it really felt like, so I remember hearing that there was an attack on the World Trade Center. My alarm went off, and it was the radio. And I was like, didn't that already happen?
Yeah. Didn't Biggie sing a song about that already?
Really?
Well, he didn't sing a song about it, but he said something like, we're going to blow up like World Trades. And
because the thing had already happened.
Hypnotized, I think. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. From the 93 thing. Yes, of course. So, I guess I was kind of interested in, like, if you remember, I don't know if you might even remember, 9/11 was so fucking long ago now. But, like, the politics were intense then. You know what I mean? Like, right after 9/11, like, Bush years, Iraq and all that. Were those things that you were thinking about, engaged in? Like,
of course. I remember going to, I did something at Wesleyan on the steps of the library. There was a protest or a speak out, and I remember doing some sarcastic pro-Bush thing. So when Wesleyan it's very social justice warrior and very, to me it was just like, okay, been here, done that, and like, it actually, I think some of the reasons that I have this visceral reaction against certain liberal identity politics things is because I remember kind of being seduced by that. Not seduced, honestly. Not seduced, but like...
sympathetic.
Not even sympathetic, but like felt like I had to. Not to sound like I'm being it, but I remember and embracing it and getting into it. And like one thing I used to really think, I used to have this very, like if you say something racist, you're a bigot or a racist person. As opposed to now, which my view is much more kind of like, well, I mean, these people are not. If you say something racist and if you're informed, and educated and rich, and you say racist stuff, you're done. Like you're probably a horrible person. But I think that some people, or even not knowing the right word, like when it comes to transgender stuff, like that's a class issue or.
It's I went to the same kind of school. I didn't go to Wesleyan, but I went to UC Santa Barbara, a huge public research university, SJW out the ass. And it really, I mean, to me, like, I say that now, I'm like, oh, these stupid SJWs. But when I was there, I was definitely like, I wouldn't say seduced. I don't know if that's the right word, but I know what you mean. Like, there's a peer pressure to it. There's also like, for me, I was just like discovering a lot of this discourse.
Right.
And so, I remember being in like Black Studies classes, and like we'd have discussions afterwards with the students, and we'd all be basically like, God, I hate my family.
Right.
White people are so fucking racist.
You should have just watched Saved by the Bell, the episode where Jessie Spano learns that she comes from like slave trading.
Did they really do that?
Yeah, and she's apologizing to Lisa, and Lisa's like, it's okay.
She's like, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's also the episode that Zach discovers his Native American roots.
Oh my God.
He does a presentation on class.
This is like the most
like
acid episode.
Native American headgear, Indian. I don't know, American Indian.
So Zach Morris wears like the Urban Outfitters headdress.
Yeah, but it's real. I mean, Urban Outfitters doesn't even go there, right? They'd probably have like a headband that had a headdress print on it or something.
Right,
but this is the real thing that he wears.
Oh, like they went for authenticity.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, I remember going to a thing called a discussion on interracial dating. And I remember hearing the sweetest... Lin-Manuel went to Wesleyan, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, man, that makes sense.
But I remember hearing...
I was like, Lin-Manuel, am I supposed to know who that is? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
So, Hamilton, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard about... I remember the announcement of it, and I think it was called The Sweetest Taboo. That was like the name of the meeting. And I remember going there,
God, that's funny.
And there was this guy who's like, I think kind of a well-known DJ now, but I remember him saying like...
This is like a Christopher Guest story already.
Oh my
He's
God,
like, anyway, the guy, he's a well-known DJ now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he went on to be a well-known DJ. But I think I remember him saying that he was tired of explaining to like white women who Jay-Z was or Jay-Z's music. And I was,
white people love Jay-Z. Are you kidding me?
Right? But I was like thinking like, oh yeah, what a taxing thing to do. Meanwhile, this guy like it's fine. I'm not saying he had a fetish, but he was always dating white women. And like if he found that really annoying, maybe he first of all, I think that, like you said, he's full of it. Like who doesn't know what Jay-Z is? Yes. But he was just such a like, oh, well, I guess that's the price you pay for only dating white women. I say this like I'm a black woman. I often feel like I'm a scorned black woman on behalf of other black women.
So it's like, so maybe dating white women is the sweetest taboo?
Yeah, well, that's what it was. The sweetest taboo was interracial. That's what it was called for. But I was just like, in retrospect, I'm like, oh.
That would be attacked now.
Let me give you a tissue for
Jesus
your
Christ.
tears.
SJWs they would attack the sweetest taboo now. I think that would be seen as an offensive title.
Because it was fetishizing?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, there's something like, I don't know. I remember like, you might as well say like the forbidden eroticism of interracial relationships.
Right.
And I'm like,
forbidden
oh, Jesus
fruit.
Christ.
Well, I remember this black woman, and they're like being like, you know what? I dabble. It's good to dabble. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was like, oh, okay, good. I don't have to feel like a terrible person because I don't think that interracial dating is awful. Of course, the really annoying thing about people who think they're so woke when they challenge and interrogate the social ramifications, whatever, of interracial dating is that the implication is that there's nothing problematic about intraracial dating, as if there's nothing problematic about, dating, keeping it within the race, which is a construct, obviously. But you know what I mean? Like, why is that not problematic?
Yeah. Why is that not a sweet taboo?
Yeah, exactly.
God. So, yeah, college is weird. Yeah, and so college in the 90s was weird.
Well, it was really early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Can you stop aging me?
I'm sorry. I'm putting you in where I'm at. I went to college a little bit earlier than you. But, like...
I went abroad. I made a documentary about the Spanish Civil War and historical memory. Because, again... Premature anti-fascists were what they called the people who fought in the Spanish Civil War, by the way. Premature
anti-fascists?
Yeah, because they were...
Is that what's happening now, you think?
Maybe.
Is that what the Richard Spencer punching is? Is
so.
Premature anti-fascism?
Well, that's what they called the people in the Spanish Civil War and it was the International Brigades were the people who fought Franco from abroad who came in. Gene Kelly stopped being a Catholic because of their support of Franco, and when he went to Mexico and thought that they weren't doing a good job with feeding the hungry and the poor.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just found this out recently. But
dancing again, right?
I mean, he was dancing throughout, I think, the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean, the connection between dancing and activism and some sort of social justice.
True. Yeah, that's true.
It's like, do fascists dance? Do right-wingers not dance? I remember that John Ashcroft didn't dance.
Another major social justice struggle.
You remember John Ashcroft from the Bush administration? He didn't want people to dance.
But he sang.
He didn't want people. That's right. He's one that put like a sheet over to cover the woman's breast.
Like Lady Justice's breast.
But what's even crazier about that, I remember like he was like forced to justify that in some like NBC interview or something, and he said, any form of art that doesn't glorify God is pornography. And so therefore, you know, and like that's even like, I don't know, the Batman movies are pornography, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, or just any you know, Frida Kahlo.
Anything.
Yeah, Diego Rivera.
And I thought that, like, God, I remember thinking back then, like during the Bush years, and this is you in college, it sounds like, and getting out of college.
Yeah. I remember finding out. I was in the library. I was in Olin Library at Wesleyan, and my friend Matt Nettleton said it looked like Gore was going to lose to Bush. And I was like, whatever, get out of here. Like, let me keep studying for this test.
Right.
I didn't believe it at all. And
well, I mean, how do you compare that feeling during the Bush years, being a person on the left, to the feeling that you have now? I mean, I know it's like hard to compare.
No, but what's interesting is that.
But there are a lot of people are making that kind of like.
What happened though was that there was no. Nader was Nader. Nader was not a Bernie at all. Bernie had an ability to speak like across has an ability to speak to various groups, and Nader's not. I mean, Bernie has this charisma. He's so authentic, right? And you just want to hear him talk. And Nader didn't have that, right? And Nader also didn't have the politics that Bernie has. So what happened was, if anything, there was a lumping together of liberals and leftists because we were all united fighting Bush, right?
Yeah.
What happened this time is with the primary, we had like a sorting out, like a filtering out process. All like people's real colors, true colors were revealed, and people really exposed themselves vis-a-vis how they thought about Sanders and Clinton, right? Now, I want to say that, like, I know people, and I have friends who were Clinton supporters during the primary. I don't have any friends who are Bernie bashers, though. Like, that's the thing that really
that's the separation. The separation.
Thing. And those are the people who
so like
think,
there were pro-Clinton people that weren't Bernie bashers,
right?
Yeah.
I have no patience for. I mean, forget that sounds too self-referential. I mean, people who are Bernie bashers are, I would say, for the most part, either just very confused or bad people.
They could be confused bad people.
Yeah, both. Yeah, I don't want to. They're not a monolith.
Yeah.
But I think
that's Wesleyan right there. That's
course.
It's not a monolith. It's not a monolith.
Well, it's Wesleyan and it's today also.
Yeah.
Right. So like I wrote a piece.
These
in
little
the Huffington
phrases
Post
of educated people
about microaggressions. I wrote a piece in the Huffington Post called the Palinist Manifesto, where I did like a feminist critique of her, and people actually thought it was real for a second.
Well, we live in that world now where it's hard to tell.
Right.
Because like literally like things that seem like satire are people being earnest.
How about Donald Trump being like a Chomskyan and telling Bill O'Reilly when he asked him about Putin killing people, he's like, "We kill people. You think we're innocent?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Amen." Oops, that was Trump.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, he also. I
no,
mean,
he's an enigmatic figure.
Well, it's not just. I mean, he was just saying a point that usually. I mean, Tavis Smiley, I heard him today on Brian Lehrer being like, "Yeah, he's right. I mean, he's like a broken clock. He's right twice a day, but he is right, and we shouldn't. He doesn't get credit for that. But it is funny how he went after Hillary super predator comments. Now, clearly, this is not a guy who's anti-racist, and his insistent, his calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five.
I was just going to bring that up.
His lamenting that they got a settlement from the city. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious how much how racist he is. Sorry, what were we saying about Wesleyan, the Palinist Manifesto? Oh, so the liberals and the left, we all kind of united against Bush.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't sufficiently critical. I mean, a lot of people were not sufficiently critical of Obama because he was being attacked as racist so much. And so it was so easy to get distracted by that. Right?
Yeah.
With Bernie really was a wake-up call. And I think you'll see the left combating Trump, but not, and I mean, there's no reason not to work with liberals when they're on board, but it's not the same thing at all. If anything, it's like a sharpening of, it's put in sharp relief, the difference. Whereas before, I did a lot of stuff with liberals. I was in something called Laughing Liberally. I started this comedy thing.
Oh my God!
My friend Justin Krebs, who's great, started a thing called Drinking Liberally. which has chapters all over, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I know that.
And it's a good thing because it was, it was a way for people like in Alabama to socialize, and if they didn't like Bush. And,
can we talk a little bit about how you became the Katie Halper? Because like you're like kind of you're a public figure, you know what I mean, and you're someone who appears in a lot of different forums. I see your writing, I see your radio show. Like, when did you start becoming a person who has an opinion in public?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I did that satire thing at Wesleyan during the war, so I was a West celeb, not a big deal at all. They interviewed me for the Argus. I always thought I'd be a lawyer, and then I kind of fell into documentary film and stand-up comedy, and I don't do stand-up as much anymore at all. I should get back into it, but I get a lot out of my radio show. Like, I get a lot of my creative whatever. And then I think what happened was my friend Wendy Cohen, who's used to be at Participant Films. She wasn't at this point. She was at Huffington Post. She invited me to do some blogging there. And so I blogged there, and that really kind of opened up doors for writing. And she has a great company called Motion Pic. I should look this up. A really good company, Wendy Cohen. Where the logo is like the action doesn't stop because it doesn't stop after the credits.
Right.
But I'm trying to remember when I did that. I started writing. I started performing. When did I? And then I did I started I did.
Yeah. When did the WNYC thing? 'Cause I think that's what people know you from the most. So
no, WBAI thing.
WBAI.
Yeah. It started I started doing the morning. Jed Brandt, suggested that I do the morning show. And there's a great guy, Michael G. Haskins, who he's an engineer. And he started out that way, but he's like a really great morning host.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great host, a radio host. So I would go in like once or twice a week, but that was 6 to 8. And it was tiring, and my lifestyle does not lend
Was that live radio?
Yes.
So you're hosting, because what you do now is not live, right? It's more of like a podcast format.
Yeah, and I pre-tape it. So Picture Motion, by the way, is Wendy Cohen.
Okay, Picture Motion.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Nice.
So
get that plug.
I don't remember if it really has like I wanted to have kind of two presences, right? And the podcast is really important because you never know what's going to happen to a radio station or that stuff. So, I started doing.
Well, it seems like the podcast format allows you to reach people in a way that doesn't.
No,
I mean,
I
I know that. I mean, it's kind of amazing just putting these things online and watching the world start listening to it.
Yeah, and I think definitely. I mean, people just
over time too. Like a radio show is just like on. That's it. The podcast, I like something happens. With Corey Robin, all of a sudden my Corey Robin episode people start listening to again.
Right.
From 2 years ago. And that's so cool because it's like, for me, it's like oral history, archives that like people can go back to again and again.
Yeah. What was the thing I was saying I had to release because of something happening? I can't remember, but re-release or, and I also tried, I have to be better about this.
Your documentary. You said you were going to re-release your documentary.
Do that, yeah. But I also really want to...
or one of them.
Yeah, I made 2. One is like much more professional than the other. The other one had a real life in the historical memory circuits and
nice.
Spanish history circuits. But I do want to be better about writing articles that embed my radio show, my podcast episode. So I did a great one with Nina Turner that I'm going to release this week. I had a great interview with Doug Henwood about what to do. I'm really interested in the idea of how we have to assess what happened, and that's not a distraction from fighting Trump.
Yeah.
It's the way that we do it. Like, we can't not look at why he won.
Yeah. And
yes, she won the popular vote. I get it. But even that is an important thing. Why is it that she won the popular vote and lost the Electoral College, right? So, yeah, I really, the podcast thing really, people our age just listen to podcasts. Yeah. That's what they do.
Well, your age.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm 49. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so your podcast
So I started the radio show, then I got an evening show, 6 to 7. Now I'm 7 to 8.
But it's far, like, I feel like what you do now is far from laughing liberally. You know what I mean? I mean, and I mean, one thing, like, well, I would say it's funny. Like, what you do is, like, your show is funny. I really like, I laugh when I listen to your show. But also, like, it's more radical. Like, it feels like,
I mean,
like, maybe, is that a product of, like, you yourself being more radical? Or is that just, like, the opportunity to become more radical in your media?
Yeah, it's like there wasn't a bit, you know, Jacobin has been really good at kind of making a community around socialism and social I mean, not everyone's a socialist, I guess, who reads Jacobin, right? But I guess everyone who writes there is. You know, all these things, there's like really, because honestly, that the people who I would agree with weren't that, I don't know how to say this. I wasn't, ISO, has never resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a coolness, there wasn't a movement or a scene that I felt really good about being in.
Yeah.
And not on a superficial image
It
basis.
just doesn't feel like you.
Yeah, it
doesn't
feel
match.
Like me.
I feel that way every time I go to most left stuff my whole life. I felt like they're older than me. They're not
very hygienic. This is so awful.
Yeah, I know. We could go on and on. But like it's like
extreme. Also the extremism.
They didn't care about drugs and sex the way I did.
Right.
I mean, that was part of it.
That's a big mistake.
Like I would go and I'd be like, I want to get laid and smoke weed and shit. And like
male breeder. No, they wouldn't even say breeder. That's SJW. They would just be like, oh yeah, tell me how to do that.
Right.
Right?
But yeah, I mean, it's beyond sex and drugs. It's really just and it's beyond the hip cool thing too.
Right. It's just a social, like there's a
something real.
Yeah. What is a sociability? Like what's the word? A genuine, like I can't think of the word. Like a nice, comfortable, real connection.
Yeah, like, and it's hard, and it's hard not to fall into cliquishness too, though, because I mean, what's happening now is like people are actually talking about. I think is the wrong way to talk about it. Just like Bernie bro, it's a fucking stupid thing.
But people reclaim that term though. By the way,
do you really?
I call myself Bernie bro. Yeah,
that's awesome. I like that. Well, that would be a Wesleyan word for what you're doing there. Reappropriation.
Subverting.
So no, I was thinking about like this term like dirtbag left and like Brooklyn left. I mean, do those terms resonate with you as your experience being in the left in New York?
Well, as a Manhattanite, lifelong Manhattanite, I feel very marginalized by the Brooklyn left terminology. No,
come to Brooklyn.
I know. Dirtbag left. I mean, I think I'm like. I don't know if I feel like I used to straddle two worlds. I used to kind of be this ambassador, I think, between liberals and the left, the dirtbag left. And then over time, because the
Seinfeld liberals and the Hunter S. Thompsons.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. But then, and there's some who are of good faith. What's the expression? Of good faith?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But a lot of them are just like, I really would try to engage and interact. I mean, they're the Sadie Doyles who clearly were like not morally. It's okay. Someone joined my Patreon just because I had gotten to a Twitter thing with Sadie Doyle, which was a great thing. I should put that on my website. Like Sadie Doyle.
I just repressed the gag when Katie said that. That you probably didn't hear that in the mic.
We got into a fight in 2010. Not to brag, but I was fighting with Sadie Doyle before.
It was cool.
Yeah, in 2010, we got into a fight.
That's like really arcane left hipsterism. Like I was fighting with Sadie Doyle in Tandon like way before everyone else was.
Yeah, not near. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to. I just want people to know what's really truthful. So yeah, and she wrote about it at the All, which I didn't realize until people told me that she was tweeting shit about me and Rania Kalik.
Yeah, I want to get her on the show too.
Oh yeah, I'll connect you guys.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I had her and the Chapo Trap House Boys. I had them on this. I humble brag. Ready?
Yes.
You're welcome, dirtbag left. I brought together all of the Chapo Trap House guys into the same physical space for the first time.
I was there.
Oh, you were there.
I was there for that show. Yeah. Awesome. That was the first time I saw you, in real life, and. I mean, the Chapo guys are I've talked about them many times on this show because I'm like, they're kind of in all of them. I've had most of them on the show, but they keep adding more people. Right. So I need to talk to Virgil Texas and Amber Frost and Brendan James, I think is the other person. Producer. Yeah. But yeah, I'll get to them eventually.
He actually did the episode I did with them, which was a bonus one. So sadly, people are deprived of it if they're not Patreon supporters, and I'm sorry for that. But Yeah, Brendan took part in that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's more than those guys, obviously,
Right.
but like this thing that's happening in Brooklyn. Do you think it's bad for the left nationally to be branded as Brooklyn? Or I mean, the things I've read. The reason I say this is like Bhaskar Sankara, from Jacobin, he did like a AMA on Reddit a few weeks ago, I think, and like the first questions, all the big questions were like, why is everything in Brooklyn? We're like in Nebraska, and we want like the left here. How do we do that? Well, it seems like there's a longing for that.
I mean, that, in all fairness, that's not really Brooklyn. Like, that's not dirtbag left's fault, right? That's more like, then they should start a DSA chapter there, right? I mean, maybe there could be a tour. Maybe, I mean, it would be great to have some DSA folks. And
they should start a Brooklyn in Nebraska.
Oh my God, Brooklyn, Nebraska.
Yeah.
That has a good sound to it. Brooklyn is a Dutch thing, right? I'm sure it comes from the Dutch. The Bronx apparently was a family called Bronx.
It's
the Bronx.
really weird being in the suburbs now because like every other child is called Brooklyn.
Wait, where?
Like in the California suburbs, like where I'm from. Yeah.
Where do you live here now?
I've lived here for like 15 years, but like when I grew up in Ventura, California, and Thousand Oaks, and like really like white. Right. Kind of privileged suburbs.
That's funny, yeah.
And like all the kids are named Brooklyn.
That's
yes,
really funny.
yes. Brooklyn and McKenna and like I don't know.
Right.
There's a whole bunch. Yeah,
Heaven was a really popular name at one point.
Yeah, Hayden, Haydens and Aidens and Chloe's and I mean it goes on and on. But Brooklyn is funny to me because like also like in Ventura now, which is trying to like gentrify, I guess. There's like Ventura is it's been historically kind of a podunk redneck town, but now they have like craft breweries and things like that, and many, many, many things named after Brooklyn. So there's really like a burrito joint that you can get your burrito Brooklyn style, and they're like they ask every single. I'll tell you, they're like, do you want your burrito Brooklyn style? And I'm like, what does that mean? It means they put hot sauce on it. That's it.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's Brooklyn.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Oh, but this is the funny part about it. Well, because I said to the girl behind the counter, "Well, I'm from Brooklyn, and I don't understand why you would put." And she said, "Oh, well, we didn't name Brooklyn style after Brooklyn, New York. It's named after our daughter, Brooklyn."
That's really funny.
Yeah. So it's like the circle of weird.
Life.
Yeah, and weird like kind of Brooklyn as a magical attractor right now.
Yeah. That's really crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, well, here we are, and we're in we're in Manhattan right now.
Yeah, Upper West Side, and this is a real neighborhood. Still, we're in the 90s. My grandmother grew up on 92nd between Central Park. Not grew up. Sorry, she lived. She died, but she used to live a block from where we are. So we're in the West 90s, and my cousin not my cousins, but my cousin's cousins. They live here upstairs. Their parents live like a block away. After KGB, what's now KGB, kicked us out from Russian Ukrainian folk dance, we did it at Strikers Bay, which is like a Michelama.
Yeah.
Which is a block away. And my parents, I grew up on 78th and Riverside, and my parents bought that apartment when I was born, and then they had it until they sold it. Way after I graduated from college. But this is nice because it's still, the neighborhood is still a neighborhood. And also, my aunt and uncle still live here. Oh, my aunt still lives here. Oh, my God. And, so it's nice to be here because it's a place, it's continuity.
And it was nice to be able to talk to you, Katie Halper, in this place because it kind of reinforces the history of the people that surrounded you when you were young and made you into the political person you are today.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I had a really great time talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank my guest, Katie Halper. Thanks very much for sitting down on the show. I always enjoy your take on things, and it was nice to actually hear a little bit of Katie's history. I didn't know anything about her before I sat down, besides that she hosted the show, the Katie Halper Show, which, again, if you haven't checked it out, check that out. You can find everything that Katie does at katiehalper.com, and you can find more of these conversations with me and all sorts of guests at nostalgiatrap.com. All the episodes are archived there, and if you feel like supporting the show, go to patreon.com/nostalgiatrap and subscribe, and you got all sorts of goodies coming to you on the way. Thanks very much. See you next time.